So right now I'd like to ask that Dr. Jeanette, if I ruined people's names today, I'm sorry. Banashak? How'd I do with your name? Did I pronounce your name right? Banashak. Banashak. Dr. Jeanette Banashak.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing today on this snowy Chicago afternoon? The Red Line Singers, that was incredible. Thank you for that. This is going to be very different. And if we were perhaps in a different space, we would maybe do a listening activity. We'd pair up and we'd talk about that. I represent the Spiritual Guidance Training Institute, and we are an organization that is based out of Chicago, but is also online. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But I wanted to say, I don't know if we have the next slide here. I called this Interfaith and Interspiritual Companionship or Direction, listening to oneself for the healing of another. And just by a show of hands, has anyone ever gone to spiritual direction or had a spiritual director or guide or companion? Okay. The practice of spiritual direction has been around since the beginning of humanity. We can trace it back to the first drummers and dancers in Africa. And we believe that presence, compassionate presence, and deep listening help to promote interfaith harmony. At the Spiritual Guidance Training Institute, we provide training for people that is 5 months or 18 months to become spiritual directors, certified, with an interfaith and an interspiritual focus. There's a quote that I've been thinking about a lot as I was pondering this time together by Patrice Brodeur. He writes, "The greatest impact of the global interfaith movement remains in the realm of personal transformation." He continues, "These personal encounters, when experienced by an increasing number of individuals, are what makes possible subsequent institutional change in terms of theology, politics, and social cooperation on the ground." And his point is that transformed people en masse change systems, transform systems. This is what is at the heart of spiritual direction. We meet with someone monthly. This is how it's transformed in the last several thousand years. At least in the West, we will meet with someone for 50 minutes or an hour. And the spiritual companion, the spiritual guide, has skills in listening and presence in order to hold and support the sacred story, in order to offer ways which they might live their best lives, and we help to support the meaning-making process. So in essence, a spiritual director, there are some overlaps with therapy, and there are some overlaps with pastoral counseling, but it is its own discipline, it's its own practice, with its own skill sets and language around it. In the practice, as spiritual companions, we are like a mirror or a reflection to the seeker, to the client. And in the same way, they are like a mirror to us. So to keep with the integrity of spiritual direction, though, I am present to you and I am focused on you for 50 minutes. If you're familiar with Parker Palmer and his work with Circles of Trust, I'm committed to you for an hour. And if something comes up inside of me, that I can tend to outside of the spiritual direction session. But right now, it is me and you. And we believe the gift that we offer is to see and to hear. We also recognize the ableism in those. And so to distill it even more, is to be with another person. Kathleen Dowling Singh wrote, "Our practice of the gift of attention is a perfect mirror for our self-cherishing mind. It reveals every intrusion of I with great clarity." And so one of the ways that we're attentive to another is that we practice maintaining attention. It's like, if I want to be a joyful person, I practice being a joyful person. If I want to be an honest person, I practice being honest. If I want to be an attentive person, I'm going to practice maintaining my attention. So it's a lifestyle. It's recognizing the divine in another with a heart mind, which is a Kathleen Dowling word. I practice being calm, concentrating, cultivating community, seeking justice, and serving. I make conscious decisions about where I put my attention. These are the practices that help us to become aware of our own ego, which is a necessary part of development, but then to move on, and as Ram Dass would say, to extricate ourselves from an identification with it. So during this week of Interfaith Harmony, as spiritual guides, as spiritual companions, we commit to listen to our own selves, even as we companion another. And we hope that in our awareness, we begin to heal ourselves for the wellness of all. I want to give a story about a group spiritual direction moment that I had that illustrates what I've been talking about. Spiritual direction tends to be one-on-one, and it also can be done in a group. Just last night, I was facilitating a group spiritual direction for people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. We call it the intergenerational youngish group. And one person was going to present. And when you present, you just share. Presenting is really not the best verb for it. But she came prepared to share. And so we always start off with a contemplative practice. And then after the contemplative practice, I invite the person who's going to share to begin out of the silence. And so they talk for a little bit, and then we'll ask some clarifying questions. But in those moments when this person talks, there is no interruption whatsoever. They have our undivided, devoted attention. And so there was one person who said, "I'm going to bring something to you, and I have told many, many family members and many friends what I'm about to tell you, but the reason I'm telling you is because I don't want your advice. The reason I want to tell you is because I want you to hold my story, to take it seriously, and to listen, and perhaps offer something out of the silence." So the practice is she shares, and then we ask clarifying questions, and then we sit in silence for a while. And we listen to spirit. We listen to the intersections of our own lives, our community, our own histories, the people in the group, for a word or an image, a phrase, sometimes a sound or a song. And then, after some time of silence, we offer that to another person. I want to fast forward several months later when I broke one of the rules of group spiritual direction, which is don't ask the person anything about what happened in the session. I forgot that rule. I asked her and I said, "Hey, how's everything going with what you were talking about?" And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "That thing that you brought to our circle of trust, to group spiritual direction." And she said, "Oh yeah, that? I totally forgot about it. I let that go several months ago." And that is the practice of spiritual direction: compassionate presence and deep listening. The Spiritual Guidance Training Institute is it's new. We have our third cohort that's going on right now in our first 5-month cohort, and we have somebody here in the audience from our 5-month cohort, which is very exciting. Our values are justice, listening, honesty, and integrity. And I'm going to be around for the next several hours, so if you have any questions, I have little postcards to share with you. But I wanted to end with a quote that sums up a little bit about why do we do the practice of spiritual directions. This is from the poet E.E. Cummings. We do not believe in ourselves until someone reveals that something deep inside us is valuable, worth listening to, worthy of our trust, sacred to our touch. Once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity, wonder, spontaneous delight, or any experience that reveals the human spirit. Thank you to the Parliament and the Chicago Interfaith Fair for putting this on and this opportunity. I am grateful, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the afternoon and evening. Thank you.